Come on in. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay.
Morning all. Just thought I'd do a quick video this morning. I'm still smarting, if I'm honest. I'm not in a happy place. I've written my article on last night's 2-0 defeat against Morecambe. It's pissed me off, and now I've come out for my dog walk. I've got a full 4G signal. It's a glorious, if not slightly chilly morning, and I thought, you know what, it's time to try and focus on, I'm not going to say positives, because I can't really focus on any positives from last night's game. It would be remiss of me to start trying to find anything from last night's 90 minutes that was positive. I suppose the one thing I could say is I didn't have the drive home. I watched it on iFollow. So kudos to anybody that stood there in the driving rain, watched that dross, and then came back home from it. So good morning to everybody. Do let me know if you're on board in the comments. Get your comments in about last night's game, if you dare. If there's any connection issues, any sound issues, let me know that in the comments as well, if you would be so kind. So I came out and I've been thinking about last night's game. I've been thinking about some of the comments that I've read afterwards, which, you know, lots of criticism, entirely justified. You're not going to get me trying to gloss over what was a really, really bad performance. And I thought, we're not in a great place at the moment in the division, but it's early days. And, you know, on Saturday, we were closer to the playoffs than relegation. You know, now we're closer to the relegation and the playoffs. That's the division after 11 games. And until you've got, I don't know, 20, 25 games on the board, probably you don't have an idea whether you're in a promotion squad scrap or a relegation scrap. I don't personally think we'll be in either all season. You know, as a little bit of a positive, I do think on January the 3rd or the 4th, you'll see a much better Lincoln City squad, because, you know, from Michael's clearly pissed off, isn't he? He's not happy. He's not a happy man. He knows that we're short. You know, when you're chasing a game away at Morecambe and you take off your 6'5" striker and bring on Remy Howarth, and I love Remy, he's a lovely lad, but he ain't a League One striker. For me, that just sort of said, well, we've lost this. Now let's wait. Let's keep Big Dan fit for Saturday, because we don't have another option. Whether you think he played well or not, he'll be number 9 on Saturday. And if he isn't, it's going to be a repeat of kind of the Oxford game with the false nines, which worked even worse than last night. Now, the reason I wanted to do the video is I tried to think back about how, well, we're in a bad position, but how many games have we been really poor in this season? And when I say really poor, I mean Morecambe poor. Or looking back at last season, I mean Rochdale at home poor, where we were awful. And bear in mind, I think that Rochdale at home game last season was as bad as anything we've seen this season. And I know some people have kind of commented, well, you know, last night's game was as bad as Gillingham away in 2019-20. Yeah, again, you've never looked like creating anything against a team who probably shouldn't have created anything. And I think that sums up Rochdale of last season. But hang on, Rochdale last season, we had Rodgers and Johnson playing. I don't know, maybe they weren't the saviours of everything. They were very, very good players, but maybe these performances do happen. So this season, how many times have we been this bad? Well, Gillingham first game, probably not. A little bit bullied at times, but deserved something from that. We beat Fleetwood, weren't bad in that game, weren't great, but weren't bad. Wickham, shot ourselves in the foot, but deserved something from the game. Bolton lost 1-0, could have gone either way, weren't great. I'm not saying these were the games where we played well. I'm just saying the games where actually we probably matched our opponents. You look at Ipswich at home. Yeah, we deserved something from that game. I'm not going to go through the what's, where's and whys and wherefores, because we all know that Macaulay Bonne cheated. So that we deserve something in the game. Rotherham probably didn't deserve something from the game and took it. So actually, there's been very few games where we've not been involved at all, you know, where we've not deserved anything. Oxford away, awful game. Really, really bad game. And deserved nothing from it. Looked like scoring in the last 10 minutes. But let's be honest, we looked like scoring in flashes yesterday. First 10 minutes, we were much better than Morecambe. Hakeeb got down the line a couple of times. I thought he was going to have loads of joy running at their right back. Contrary to what people have said on social media, I think Unlundaloo provided a presence in the area which we haven't seen. Could be why we didn't actually function as well, because We haven't got the Tom Hopper doing the hard work. We've now got what everybody wants, a striker who gets in the area, and we're now lacking on the kind of interplay in front of the 18-yard area. So, be careful what you wish for, I think, in some instances. I also think that we had a spell in the early part of the second half that is easy to gloss over around Cole Stockton's goal. Fiorini's effort was very, very well saved. Dan and Undlu should have scored. I'm told Bishop had a chance, which obviously we missed because, I follow. So, yeah. Were we outplayed last night? No, we weren't. We weren't outclassed a la Rotherham, were we? We weren't, lucky to come away with nil. We weren't under the cosh. I think if you look at XG, it probably tells you that, the right team won, but 1-0 would have been a fair result. And on another day, we could have taken something from it. I'm not saying we deserved to. We were very, very poor. I'm not making any excuses whatsoever. And on the face of it, it looks like a bad result. Last season, we were beating Sunderland 2-0 at home in the playoffs, and beating Portsmouth at Fratton Park, and it all seemed really good, and we won game from the Championship, and now we're losing 2-0 away at Morecambe. And you can take those results and kind of go, whoa, where's the improvement? But you could also take, we lost 2-0 at home to Rotherham, but to Rochdale rather last season. We beat Cambridge 5-1 this season. So you can take two results in any context and compare them and say that things were not particularly good. Look, I'm making no excuse. You know that hopefully from me by now. Never get me coming on saying, I think this was good when it wasn't. And it wasn't. It was shit last night. I saw a comment from Jack Mulhall and I quite liked it, that, it was poor, but we're not far away. And I think that's what's really, really frustrating, is we're not far away. Actually, with a full squad, and I'm including Theo Archibald in this, by the way, but with a full squad of players that belong to us, fit and ready, we win last night's game. Because if Undlu's not doing well on 60 minutes, you bring on Tom Hopper or vice versa. We probably don't have to go with makeshift winger in Hakeeb in the second half. If you thought, sorry, not makeshift, but if you thought Hakeeb hadn't played well, you bring him off, you switch it up a little bit, and you've got Chris Maguire there to come on. Defensively, I think our distribution out of defence is very poor. Joe Walsh probably plays left centre-back and TJ Omer plays right centre-back. If Joe Walsh plays left centre-back, he helps the left-back out more than a naturally right-footed left centre-back last night. So, Jamie Robson probably would benefit from having Joe Walsh at the side of him, as Cohen Bramall did, I think, on the probably one occasion that Joe Walsh was fit and played with him last season. So, again, I think you've got to have some context. And social media, I'm not going to say gives you a knee-jerk reaction, because it gives you an instant reaction from people, as you would get if you were stood in the pub. And sometimes people's natural instincts are the right ones, even if they don't express them in the right way. So when people are going on saying things like, it's in shambles, I can understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, you have to take a step back. We overachieved last year. There's no doubt about that. And we all got caught up in it. Never too high when you win applies to games. Never too low when you lose applies to games. I think it's got to apply to blocks of games or seasons. Lincoln City are on a plan, a long plan. And it's not a plan to get into the Championship last year. And if I remember correctly, it's probably not even a plan to get into the Championship this year, which is good. The year after, who knows? The players that we've signed now who are not particularly impressing, and I'm going to say Hakeeb, in flashes has. I'm going to say Lasse Sorensen, fairly anonymous last night, I think. Dan and Lunderloo only started 2 games, let's be fair. And in that handful of players there, you've got 2 players who are 21 years old. So, they've got to do some adjusting. It's taking longer. And I know Michael said to me, we're not going to see the proper Lincoln City until the end of September, beginning of October. Well, we're there now and we're packed with injuries. You're still not seeing the proper Lincoln City. You ain't going to see this season's team in full flow until January, because we all know that deadline day didn't go our way. We all know that there was players that we targeted in the summer that didn't come to us. And do you know what? These are players I've heard we targeted from different sources, not from the football club, who either did not come to us, or were kept back by their loan team. I heard Marvin Johnson, who was at Oxford under Michael Appleton, played for Middlesbrough, moved to Sheffield Wednesday. I've heard he was 24 hours from signing from us, and Wednesday doubled his money. Right or wrong? I've heard Jayden Philemon Bodis Might be a new name on you. Go and check out Aston Villa's website. I've heard that he met with the club this summer and he was a primary target. And then he got into their Carabao Cup team, scored a couple of goals, and that deal fell through. So we were trying to sign players in what was a really, really difficult climate, I think. And yes, we missed out. Yes, it didn't go according to plan. We've got probably 3/4 of a squad, 2 more players in this squad, and 1 or 2 less injuries. We suddenly look very, very strong. And it's all right saying ifs and buts. Football's all about ifs and buts. If Egerloshenstad hadn't dived against Southampton all those years ago in the Coca-Cola Cup, for those that remember, if Gary Willard's watch hadn't stopped when we played Crystal Palace, if we'd beaten Emily and gone on to play West Ham, do you know what I mean? It's ifs and buts. Football is, you know, if we hadn't signed Brennan Johnson last season, where would we have been? And people lump Johnson and Morgan Rogers together. I don't. I think Johnson was different class. I think Morgan Rogers was good. But I think that he gets now rated on who he is rather than what he did for the team. So look, I don't want to put rose-tinted glasses on last night's performance. Wouldn't do that. Wouldn't insult your intelligence and wouldn't demean myself by trying to do so. But I also think it's really important just to keep, it's easy to say keep balance, because I didn't keep balanced. I turned off with 5 minutes to go. That's the honest truth. And I stormed upstairs. And yeah, I was in a bad mood. And I've woke up in a bad mood. And I've written about the game, and that didn't improve it. But you have to take the rough with the smooth. This is one game, and in the course of 3 or 4 seasons of Michael Appleton's reign, and he will get more seasons. Don't for 1 minute be one of these people that starts questioning whether he should be manager or not. He absolutely should be manager. He's being dealt a bad hand. I write a lot about poker, and a hand of poker is like a game of football. You might get dealt a bad hand. You might lose that hand, you might lose some chips on it, but actually over the course of the poker game, where you've got 40, 50, 60 hands, you tend to find that you be where you are, and you don't always get dealt bad hands. Sometimes you get dealt good hands, as I think we did against Burton at the weekend, where the players all turned in a decent performance. We rode our luck at the end. We got a good hand and we played it well, but we won't always get that. We'll get good hands. Sorry to use the poker reference, but we will. So yeah, I think it's just important to keep that balance, to keep that kind of not reasoning, not neutrality. Don't sit on the fence. Got to say what you think. That's why we follow football, isn't it? My good friend Ian Plenderly wrote a book called The Silent Fan. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's about the fan that never speaks up, never puts it to things on social media, doesn't collect programs or badges or shirts, doesn't write to the paper, like the opposite of me, basically. And there's a lot of you out there. There's 37 people watching this. When I go through the comments in a second, my guess is 10 of you have commented, because there are probably 20 silent fans watching. That's probably you. And hopefully, it's you I'm speaking to as much as anyone, because the silent fan can easily be influenced by what others are thinking and think that's a mainstream thought. So they can go on banter, which is, I'm not criticizing banter, but it tends to be where a lot of the negativity comes out, rightly so after last night's game. But the silent fan will go on banter and read that and think, is that what everyone's thinking? And the answer is no. When the final whistle went last night, everybody, silent fan, mouthy fan, banter fan, every fan, will have probably felt the same, like putting a foot through the monitor or putting their foot through their windscreen if they were in Morecambe. But you've just got to step away, take a look at the overall picture. We've lost 2, I think, in 6. It's the honest truth. League and Cup. It's the truth. We've lost 2 in 6. Ipswich and today, or last night, beat Cambridge, drew with Rotherham, beat, slips my mind now, Burton, beat Bradford. It's not a terrible run. It's Morecambe, isn't it? If we'd gone yesterday and lost at Sheffield Wednesday, you'd kind of go, oh, well, big budget. We were brave. Morecambe got a big budget. And we weren't brave in places. We were not lazy. We were uncommitted. Certain players were uncommitted. And before we jump on one player, before we say, well, Hakib's not good enough, Hacks didn't play well last night. Les Sorensen didn't play well last night. Dannon Lunderloo didn't play well last night. Anthony Scully didn't play well last night. I don't think Ted Bishop played well, particularly when he came on. I don't think Ioma or Monsma played particularly well. I think Jamie Robson was all right. I think Regan Poole had a decent game. Liam Bridcutt was probably my man of the match. It'd be hard to criticise Josh Griffith. That's it really, isn't it? And when you're a team like ours that meant to be free flowing, passing, movement. You get 2, 3 players not playing well, you get beat. You get 5, 6, 7 players not playing well. Just looks like, and I've seen it described as this. I've used it in my article, and it's probably the last word that I'll say on it. Looks like a shit show. And it was. And it's not the last word I'll say on it, because it looked like a shit show. If Dan and Lunderloo had been slightly sharper with his finish, and Carl Leathern hadn't got across to Luis Fiorini's effort, 2 very, very good efforts on goal, probably as good as the goals that Morecambe scored, you draw 2-2. But football's ifs and buts. Right, so let's go all the way back to the beginning of the comments. I'll just give a few of you a shout out. I've managed to drag my little dog all the way round today, so glorious day, a little bit chilly. I'm just out the wind. Mr. Keneally is on the show this morning. Morning, guys. It's done. Bring on Saturday, indeed. Kate's bound to be full of joy, as she always is. Really have to question whether this squad is good enough. There is a danger that people assuming that new signings are automatically great when they haven't seen them play before. I get that. I don't think we can say this squad is not good enough, in my opinion. I don't think they're playing well enough. I think there's a very, very distinct difference. You know, and the players that we've signed in Maguire and Adelican have plenty of experience at this level and are good enough. They've proven it. There's players who have yet to prove themselves at this level. Probably Sorensen and Lunderloo are the main two. I think Fiorini is showing that he is, excuse me, good enough at this level. You know, it's opinion. I respect your opinion. I think the squad is good enough when it's fit and when everybody's playing well. Do I think it's as strong as last season? Nobody's emerging as a George Grant or a Brennan Johnson figure. And they're the two players that we need to not replace, because I don't think you replace them, but they were the 2 sparks last year, and they were the ones we were hoping to see somebody come in and emulate, and as yet we haven't. Ted Bishop could emulate George Grant. I think he wants to run with the ball a little bit too much rather than play the pass. I don't think we've got a Brennan Johnson figure in the side. I think the closest that we have to that kind of exciting, what's he going to do next player, is Theo Archibald, who's not with us. I think we'll wait till January to see that happen. So we'll see how we go. Chris Atwood says it was grim, onwards and upwards, indeed. Neil Carlton says Dross is being kind, indeed. Kate, here's something I agree with. Johnson and Rodgers didn't have anywhere near the impact people make out, especially the latter. The latter didn't. I think Johnson did at times, but you look at Fleetwood at home where we drew, where we were, I think, beaten 2-1. You look at Rochdale at home where we were beaten, I think, 2-0. He didn't have that impact consistently. When he was good, he was very, very good. Talking Northampton, talking MK Dons. But actually, at times, especially when the 2 of them played together and Johnson was in the 10 and Rodgers was out wide, they were 2 luxury players that we couldn't afford. And you know, neither of them particularly stepped up on a regular basis when George Grant was injured. So I think if we had a Brennan Johnson figure now, he would be a huge boost to the squad. I don't think we needed to replace both of them. It was George Grant and Brennan Johnson that we needed to replace, in my opinion, not Morgan Rodgers. Pat Goat says, thanks for bringing some logic to the situation. If you ask my partner, she'll say it's the only thing I am logical about. Owen Dawson disagrees. He thinks Johnson definitely did have the impact. I think on a game by game basis, he didn't. I think you could pick games where he was good. I think you could pick games where he wasn't. But you'd certainly have him back now. James Bride agrees with Owen. He says Johnson had a massive impact. Even if he did little, teams had to prepare for him. Create space for others on top of his quality. Agree, Rodgers not so much, but still better than most of the current options. Yeah, you'd have Rodgers now. If you were given a choice between the 2, you would have Johnson, I think, over Rodgers, but you'd definitely have Rodgers now. Mr. Biddles, morning, Gaz, morning, my friend. I hope you're well. Emma Krellin, morning, Gary. We were okay first half, then seemed to lose confidence after their goal. Felt like a long trip home last night, but feeling more positive today. Fair play for going. Fair play to all of the travelling fans that went last night, when there were so many factors stopping you from going. And I'm not just talking about the weather, I'm talking about the so-called petrol crisis, or should we call it the non-existent manufactured petrol crisis. But there we go. Mr. Bride, again, been reading some of his work in DF this week. Great editor of DF around the turn of the century. Johnson was key last season. Teams had to deal with him, and Rodgers, I agree, wasn't as good. Still massive difference to this season. Mr. War, good friend of mine, sits next to me at the games. Totally agree. Certainly matching other teams we've played, just lacking in the final third. Now, if you know Matt, you'll know that that's as an honest opinion as you get, because believe me, if we were shit, he'd tell us you were shit. Mr. Rundle, morning, mate. Weather is good for you today. It's chilly, Brian, I'll be honest, but the sun's shining. I don't know if you can see my view across there. So when I'm at the top of the hill, you can see the sea. which is about 15 miles away, but I've just come down the bottom of the hill now. Neil Carlton, we weren't outclassed by Morecambe. You're right. Things would be bad if we were against a club like Morecambe. No offence to Morecambe, 100%. Need to step it up against good Plymouth sides. I think Plymouth have lost and drawn, haven't they? Did they lose to Crewe at the weekend? Certainly lost to Crewe recently. Only lost one, drawn 4. See that being a draw personally myself. Dave Parker can't afford to carry players at the minute. If teams not averaging plus 7.5 a player, we crumble 100%. When we are averaging 7.5 a player, we put 5 past Cambridge. So, we can't handle too many poor performances, and at the moment we don't have the squad to drop the players that are not performing well, and I think it's a vicious circle. Mr. Rundle, some responses will be seen on Saturday, I think. I hope you're right, my friend, because if they're not, questions would be asked. And finally, Bubs, morning, Gaz, morning, pal. Hope you're all right. I know that you were stuck down south and couldn't make the game yesterday, which I would imagine was killing you as it was me. I would love to have been there. Not now, not with hindsight, but around kickoff, I would love to be able to go to Morecambe and have watched last night's game. And as I say, fair play to those that travelled again. Fantastic support. Great to see so many fans making a journey on a Tuesday night. It's tough, it's expensive. We're away on Saturday. It's a big commitment. It's not easy in the modern life to be able to just do that. So fair play to everybody that went, definitely. And a big shout out to Olivia on her birthday. Hopefully she got a dog. Look, that's pretty much all I'm going to say on the matter. I think we could sit here and talk about it all day long. We know what the issues are. We know we've got injuries. We know the transfer window didn't go well. Neither of those excuse last night's result. We had an 11, which should have beaten their 11. That's no disrespect to Morecambe whatsoever. It sounds disrespectful, but it is of no disrespect to Morecambe at all. They're the teams we should be beating. We didn't beat them. Now we've got to go out and we've got to prove that we can beat the teams that we probably have no right to be beating in terms of budget. So we're talking Wigan, which I think may be cancelled for international call-ups anyway. I'm not sure. I'm talking certainly Plymouth. And we've got Sheffield Wednesday coming up, haven't we, in the next couple of weeks? We've got Wimbledon coming up. There's a team we should be winning. So you just got to keep looking forward. And if we get to Christmas and January and we're bottom 5, bottom 6, then we can start squeaky bumming and analysing. But for now, take it one game at a time. We chalked that one off. It was a bad hand, or good hand that we played badly, and we go again. Oh, I hate that saying. I've fallen into a trap. Oh, I hate that we go again. There's another game to focus on. How about that? Anyway, thank you all for watching and have a great, what day is it? Wednesday. Have a great Wednesday. Cheers.